Listening to the Real Estate Financial Coach podcast, financial planning topics for real estate investors. Welcome to the Real Estate Financial Coach podcast. I'm Cynthia Meyer, one of the co-founders of Real Estate Financial Coach, and I'm here today to talk about all things real estate and financial planning with Dan Huffman, Cornerstone Financial Planning. Dan, tell us what's important to know about you.
Hey, Cynthia. So I'm a career changer. I was in the Army on active duty for 11 years where I served as a physical therapist. Before that, I did some sports medicine. So really nothing ever related to financial planning formally. But I was always that guy that got lucky and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Millionaire Next Door, and Dave Ramsey's book when I was in college. And so it just really triggered this big interest in personal finance and investing. And then over my other professional career, I guess I just kept reading and researching, and at one point started a blog. And I finally decided really around COVID. And right before that, my son was born. And I just decided I was probably ready for a change in careers. And so over the past year and a half, I went through the CFP program and launched my firm. And I found out about the real estate financial coaching course. And I really wanted to go through that because I love real estate. And so we've been investing in real estate, and it's been good for me and great for my clients.
Tell me a little bit about your firm and how you serve real estate investors in your firm.
So I feel like as a career changer and someone a little earlier in my journey, I am focusing more on younger people in the accumulation phase. So I would say my ideal clients probably between 18 and 60 and starting out, still in the accumulation phase, we'll say. I do have a few clients that are a little bit older traditionally, I would say, but they're in that starting phase still. So I really aim to help people just aggressively build wealth through good cash flow management. But then also many of them have, even if they weren't investing in real estate, they're very interested in it. And a lot of people have been using their homes as the equity has grown a lot. And so just being able to teach them how they can leverage that equity a lot more, or tax efficiently or tax free even, to get started in real estate or other types of investing, that's been really good. So I typically work with people who at least are maybe have the goal of financial freedom and are open to doing that through real estate.
So the real estate curious, if you will.
Yes.
So did you decide on working with real estate investors or aspiring real estate investors in your practice? How did you pick that as something that you wanted to focus on?
I think probably selfishly, I just wanted to learn as much as I could for myself. I do love helping people, but the more I began learning about real estate, I progressed from maybe 5 years ago being a little bit of a skeptic and it sounds too good to be true, to learning more about the taxes and the tax benefits, and then just really finally getting the confidence to begin investing myself a few years ago. And so I've just dove into the investing piece myself. And then I love taking what I've learned and seeking out, we'll say, more formal, good information like this, and then just being able to pass that on to my clients. So it just became a natural niche. And I also feel like a lot of financial advisors, they don't work with real estate investors. I have a mentor, and he thought it was a terrible niche to have working with real estate investors because they wouldn't want you to manage their money. And they would always be wanting to buy real estate instead of investing it with you. But then when I talked to him about being flat fee and fee only, then he was like, oh, this is perfect. That would be the perfect person to work with a real estate investor. And so I've just really enjoyed it. And I love learning about real estate.
Tell me about your real estate business that you have yourself.
We invested in a syndication first, and it was a pretty cool offering. There are 6 properties in 3 different states in 5 different cities. And so it became a very diversified offering all at once. And so when I found out about that, I researched it a little bit more, and I just thought it made sense to get a syndication under my belt. So part of what I try to offer to my clients is just helping them know that there are more passive options for real estate investing. And then also just learning a little bit about the nuances of if you wanted to 1031 into syndication, what would you have to look for specifically, and how not every syndication works for that.
And so, Dan, for the financial planner or consumer who's listening who doesn't know what a syndication is, why don't you explain that?
So basically, there's a group of general partners, and typically there's a group, and they each have their own roles, but they will come up with a property typically. I think my offering with multiple properties was pretty unique, but they'll have a property in mind that they want to buy. They fundraise, but they do all the underwriting and evaluation and planning, management. They oversee all of the actual operations of the property. And typically it's a kind of like a BRRRR method, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, it seems. And so they want to find a property with good value add. And so they will find that property. They will raise enough money to get the loan from the bank, which is typically pretty large. But for people who want to invest via 1031, you have to look for a syndication that offers some type of tenants in common ownership. And so there are different ways to help people find those.
And so another important thing for people to know is that syndications are private placement investments that are generally only suitable for accredited investors, people that made certain net worth and income standards. And they're on the riskier side, and definitely for somebody that is a more sophisticated, higher net worth investor in general. But when did you buy your first set of doors?
So just over a year ago, first purchase was an 11-unit building, and it was in a small town in Ohio, of all places.
You went straight to an apartment building. Love it. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I will say my thought process was a lot of people think about starting small and building up. And I guess everything's relative with real estate, but I just wanted to get into multifamily. That's what attracted me to real estate. And so when I was initially looking, we had been living in Europe when I was learning more about real estate and really getting into it. And I didn't want to be a long distance landlord. And so we moved back to Colorado. And then I started really getting serious about looking at properties. And then I very, very soon realized that this wasn't going to cash flow or work for a BRRRR strategy like I really wanted to. And so then all of a sudden I became a long distance landlord. But for other reasons, I ended up in Ohio, and I was really looking around the Columbus area in general. I found this building. It popped up on the MLS of all places, and it just seemed dirt cheap, honestly, compared to especially Colorado, but also Columbus. And so I had contacted a good real estate agent that I got connected with through a military real estate investing group. And so he went out, checked out the place, and it was very clearly owned by, we'll say, a slumlord. And so just a lot of value add. One of the value adds I saw immediately was that there were 2 empty units in the basement that had been filled with trash over the, 50 years or something. And so that was part of my plan, was to add 2 more units. And then just everything needed updated. The electrical had been updated though in 2012. So that was one thing I felt better about. But yeah, I ended up buying the 11 units, and I've been rehabbing them just 1 or 2 at a time ever since.
They become vacant. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you take a commercial loan to do this, Dan? Did you buy it for cash or with private money?
So I was very fortunate to be in a pretty strong cash position. So we did it with cash. At the time, interest rates were climbing. I did look at a loan, and I think it was around 7.5% to 8% is what I'm remembering at that time. And so it just made sense for me, not knowing how long. I didn't want to do anything with bridge debt because I didn't know how long it would take me to renovate that whole building. When I bought it, I still had to build my team. And so I didn't have contractors in line. I just felt it took some risk off the table to do it with cash. Then I did go there. I did find a good team. So I have a great group of contractors, and I found someone to manage the property pretty cheaply. My property manager is just my feet and my hands there. I still collect all the rents. I do all the leases. I talk to the tenants. I set things up between my property manager and the tenants, actually, and then also with the contractors, or if there's any maintenance needs. So I'm still semi-active in the management piece, but I do definitely have someone on site there.
How often do you have your boots on the ground, if you will, and to meet with your property manager and to take a look at what's happening in the property?
So I haven't been there since I bought it. I went there once right after I bought it, but I haven't been there since. So my plan is probably this winter or early spring, I'll probably fly out there and see it. It should be done completely. I'm hoping by January. It's now 13 units rented out instead of the 9 that were rented out when I bought it. And then my plan would be at some point, maybe in the next year, depending on interest rates, see if it would make sense to do a cash out refinance of some sort.
What are you hoping to accomplish in your real estate business?
My goals have definitely evolved. I will tell you what feels the best, honestly, is being able to help people. This is a very blue collar, small town. Median income's like $38,000. About 70% of the people in this town rent. So it's a great location to own a rental, but there's a lot of not very nice properties there. So when I did go, I was blown away by how bad some of the streets were, worn down houses, bad yards, all that stuff. So it feels really good to give people a really good place to live. And some of my
Mhm.
tenants, like the ones that are still there, most of them are extremely grateful for that. And so I have been moving tenants into new units as they become available. And they've been so grateful for the chance to live in a nicer place. And the rents have gone up like 300 to 400 a unit for that. And so it's been a great value add for me. And I feel like I'm doing a really good service to them. So
By offering a nice place to live.
that's been good. And then I've really liked working with my property manager and the contractors. They were unique. So I'll just say that, like, the property manager, she was not employable. And so I'm able to give her a job too. She's been very loyal and very grateful. I've really appreciated her. And that's one of the reasons I haven't felt the need to go there, is because she's so good.
So do you think as you expand the real estate side of your entrepreneurship that you will continue to expand in the same geographic area?
I did expand a little bit. I bought a single
Mhm.
family home in Austin, Texas last fall, and I
Which is
just finished renovating
way
it.
on the other side of the country.
So I was looking at diversification by market and then a real estate strategy. I was able to get a single family home off a wholesale deal. I paid about 50% of the going rate for houses in that market, I would say, in that neighborhood. And then I've been renovating it for the past year. I've definitely learned a lot of lessons, I will say.
Hard to renovate from a distance. I always find in our real estate business, my husband and I, that when we do renovations, they always take longer than if, let's say, we were doing them on our own house, because there isn't the same sense of urgency when it's not your own property.
A lot of lessons learned, and one of those is some of that urgency. Part
Mm.
of the problem was I think I had my place in Ohio going, and then it took me a month or so to find a good contractor in Austin that I could work with.
Mhm.
And then when I did, he actually did a lot of work really fast. Within 3 or 4 months, I would say he was 85% done. But then there were a couple issues, and that was about the same time I was launching my financial planning firm. So I think I let myself get distracted and I just trusted him to do some stuff, and then he didn't. And then we had a communication issue on some doors and ordering doors for the house. And then that fell through. And then we had to reorder doors, and then they were the wrong size. And then we had to wait again for doors to come in that were the right size. And so it really just pushed things back. But I've certainly learned a lot of lessons. That house is finally listed, and I'm still waiting to get a renter in it. I missed the back to school rush, we'll say.
Yes. No, that definitely happens with single family homes, especially in a good school district. If you don't get people in before the start of the school district, you could stay empty for a while. Hopefully yours will not stay empty.
Yeah, hopefully not. One of the things I always talk to my clients about too is having multiple exit strategies. And so I think
Mhm.
this house would make an okay short-term rental. I think it would make a great corporate rental. So I'm actually exploring that with a couple of people who have
Mhm.
reached out. My ultimate goal was the long-term rental, to hold it and then do a 1031 out of it. But I've actually had more interest in selling it than I've had in renting it. And so I'm considering maybe trying to see if I could work with a 1031 exchange company and see if I would maybe qualify for a 1031. If I've held it for another week, I'll have held it for over 12 months. And I
Mhm.
don't know if, since my intent was to rent it out and then it just didn't work, perhaps I could do that. But I know, Cynthia, maybe you have more good free advice for me on this.
I'm curious as to how your real estate experience that you've had so far informs how you work with clients.
I feel like a lot of real estate is learning by doing, but
Mhm.
I have always tried to learn vicariously through other people's mistakes. And I'm certainly sharing those with my clients, and then also my
Mhm.
own mistakes and those lessons learned. So I feel like investing in real estate myself has made me learn so much more. I've spoken to more attorneys that specialize in real estate, more CPAs and EAs that specialize in real estate, more people like you, financial planners and dual CFP CPAs that invest in real estate. And I've just learned so much. So I feel like me actually investing myself, it's a huge benefit for my clients because I can
Mhm.
speak that language. I also have a realistic expectation of timelines. I
Mhm.
know some things that they should tell their contractors. I know about bookkeeping, and I found a good bookkeeper who does real estate specific type of bookkeeping and helps organize everything for my tax
Mhm.
account. And so it's very helpful. I just try to pass on everything to my clients.
And now you mentioned that you work a lot with people in the FIRE community, the financial independence retire early community. And how would you say, how is that different working with folks who are aggressively really trying to put a large amount of their current income into savings and investments for the future, probably more than the typical person? How would you say that going through the real estate financial coach course has helped you work with those folks in particular?
I think the real estate financial coaching course was really good for me because it helped me go deeper than the surface level on so many different areas and just showed me some areas where I needed to go even deeper on my own. I think really what I gained is a lot more confidence in just looking at real estate. I learned a ton about exit strategies, a lot about the financing, a lot about the tax side. And so it was just really beneficial to learn that. And then again, it just opened my eyes that there's a whole lot more here than what you'll just read in like a book that you could pick up from Bigger Pockets or something. And so that has really helped.
I appreciate that was our goal in creating the course, is to provide a comprehensive overview of the different ways that financial planners can work with real estate investors in different components of the planning process and all the different parts of their financial lives. Up until now, it's largely been uncharted waters. And so I think the cool thing about all of us who are financial planners who work with real estate investors, we have the opportunity here to share with each other and to really give a hand back and help teach other people who are coming up and just starting their businesses or just becoming certified financial planners or accountants who are interested in working with real estate investors, to give them the benefit of all these things that we've learned through trying to create it from scratch.
Yeah, definitely.
So in particular, in reference to the fire community, so I know in my practice, we have similar kind of fee models in our practices that are not dependent on investment in securities necessarily, or managing investments in security. I found that a lot of the younger folks who have bought rental properties, for example, and now they're at the point where they're asking themselves, can I be work optional now? But maybe they have kids, they haven't fully saved for college, or they have aging parents that they have to help, or like the midlife life stuff starts to happen. And that's an interesting time, I think, as a financial planner, to help that person who's been a really aggressive saver, but may not have fully mitigated all the risks that they're about to expose themselves to if they have no ordinary income, if you will.
Yeah, I actually have a couple I'm working with right now that is 47, 48. They have 4 kids from high school down to 4 years old. And they're in that boat where they have 3 rental properties. One of them is actually a short-term rental in Maui that didn't get burned down, but they
Oh,
just
thank
happen to be
heavens.
so
Yeah.
close. But still, one of the risks now, there's no short-term rentals there. And so they've
No.
converted to a midterm. He's still upside down on his mortgage by $2,500 a month. So still a significant thing, but fortunately he has enough cash reserves. He can cover that and he's in a great financial position. But yeah, there are a lot of things to think about. And I think the biggest challenge is diversification and maybe having your cash reserves, but also your stock investments and real estate.
Multiple sources of income.
Yeah. And then even
Wow.
within the real estate, having some short-term rental, but also some long-term mixed in. That's really helped him smooth this out.
What do you think is the most fun thing about working with real estate investors as clients?
So honestly, what I love is the education piece. So I love looking at properties with people, and if they tell me what they're thinking of doing. I personally haven't invested in a short-term rental myself, but I have enough clients who have and friends who have that I've learned quite a bit from them. And so it's just really fun to sit down with a client and then show them things and just see that they've never thought of this before, or like how this one house would work so well for this, whether it's like a rent by the room strategy or just a simple thing like living in a house for 2 years and then moving, renting it out for 3, and then being able to sell it tax free. Like so many people don't realize you can do this stuff.
Serial renovation, if you're renovating it. Yeah.
Yeah, like the
Serial
living
house
kit.
hacking.
So I just love that a lot of people just view their house as a place they stay, but I can help them open their eyes and view it as an investment as well. And then try to help them buy the next one to be an even better investment and just keep scaling like that. So I enjoy
Yeah,
that.
that's really fun. So what do you think financial planners should know about real estate investors?
Man, I think that there's an awful lot about the taxes to learn.
Tax focused engagement. And
Yeah, but going through the CFP, which was relatively recent for me, it was good. And I learned enough to be interested more. But the more I've kept learning, the more nuanced I've just realized how deeply this goes. So I actually hired a tax advisory firm, I guess you would say, CPA, just for tax advice. And they've been so good at just teaching me so many different things. And so I think there's a huge difference between what I see in like the DIY crowd and then also just what general financial advisors know. Really being able to help our clients at that deepest level makes such a big difference.
I totally agree with you. I think a financial planner doesn't have to be tax advisor, doesn't have to be a tax preparer. But if you want to work with this niche of real estate business owners, you certainly have to be tax illiterate. You have to
Yeah.
understand all the different ways that you can create advantages, that real estate's tax advantage, and also the things to look out for, things that people do too aggressively, like real estate professional status. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, and making sure that when to refer a client to a tax professional, they're not going to blow themselves up.
I think too, again, as we were talking about earlier, there are people who do work with CPAs who erroneously claim real estate professional status or something else. But just being able to educate your clients that actually have to prove these hours. And like I learned something about a tax court case where a guy lost because he had proved his hours, but he didn't prove that he had worked more hours than his house cleaners for short-term rental. And so they threw his case out because he couldn't prove that his cleaners didn't spend more time at the short-term rental. So he lost material participation. And just learning it like that and really trying to help your clients stand up well in the face of an audit. I think we can do that from an education standpoint. It just goes so deep, and we aren't taught that unless I think we have to find that out.
So getting back to the course a little bit, since you were one of the founding members of the Real Estate Financial Coach community, you were one of the original or beta testers of the course. What were some of the characteristics of the course that you found personally useful?
I like the lessons done in modules and multiple modules per lesson. And so I like that I could do one day and then think about it. And then I would try to do them each one day or over 5 days or however many modules there were. But I just like that it was broken up like that because it was very doable. And you could also finish something in a sitting. And then really the Friday discussions were so good. And I think it was really helpful, just especially again, as a career changer, I feel like I had some other disadvantages, but just seeing how you and Scott and some of the other leaders would like actually look at a property or actually look at your spreadsheets and see what you're including in them. I think that was really beneficial. So just seeing it done, seeing what you're thinking, and then that kind of gave me the confidence to just keep going and build my own way.
You're building a really interesting company, and we look forward to seeing what you accomplish for yourself and your family and for your clients. But where can we find you online?
Thank you, Cynthia. And again, just thank you so much to you and Scott and everyone else who was part of the real estate financial coaching course. It was great. My website is cornerstonefiplanning.com. So FI for financial independence. And that's pretty much it. I don't really have other social media stuff for the business.
Just to finish up here, then, let me ask you, what are you most curious about right now?
Honestly, I am just very deep into the tax piece. And so I'm just learning as much as I can. And yeah, my tax advisory company, they have a bunch of master classes and different courses I can go through. And so I'm just trying to knock those out as much as I can and go as deep into the weeds as I can. That's
wonderful. Dan, thank you so much for talking to us and sharing your experience with new planners in the Real Estate Financial Coach program and people who are considering it. You're doing an amazing job. We can't wait to see what else you come up with.
Thank you, Cynthia. And I'm glad to talk to anyone if anyone ever has questions. So just reach out.